Hey guys, welcome back to Pack Talk with me, your host, Pete Vodden. This is the episode 100, our 100th episode. We've been doing it for a while, so a little benchmark for us. And I couldn't think of two people I'd rather have on my 100th podcast than the Kings of Bolt, Robert Campbell and Jake Taylor. And this is actually a double celebration because finally, we have an athlete in the CrossFit Games. Jake Taylor, who qualified this year. Congratulations, my friend. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so thrilled for you. What an achievement!
Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you, Pete.
I don't want to take all the credit, you know. But I'll be honest and said it is an amazing thing, and you know we've all known each other for a really long time. For those of you listening that don't know, we kind of go way back to 2016 when I first met you guys. Me and Robert actually did a little challenge together at a CrossFit gym that he was working at. We were the captains of the winning team, so we were champions from day one. And I met you both at that time. And you know, again, for those of you listening, I was introduced to these two amazing athletes who have become kind of like my friends, my inspiration. I don't think there's been a day when I haven't known them to be in the gym, or they've been in the gym somewhere and they've been, you know, telling me what they've been doing, or I've been seeing them seeing what they've been doing. And they're just phenomenally consistent and very active and always kind of pushing me and pushing each other. And we've come to the point where Jake's in the CrossFit Games. So how are you feeling, Jake?
8 years later.
8 years later. How are you feeling at this point? You know, it's been a long old road and here we are. How do you feel?
Yeah, I haven't really reflected on it too much. I mean, as you said, 2016 was the first year that I ever did the Open. And just seeing my evolution and what it takes to get to the games has just been very interesting. And it's also been changing as I've gotten a little bit. I didn't start in CrossFit until I was like 46 or 47. And so I'd never only lifted before. All the gymnastics moves were new to me, like any of that stuff. I come from a triathlon, swimming background. So I had to pick up all that stuff in your late 40s. And so I remember like during COVID, my handstand walking was atrocious and I wanted to learn handstand walking. So during COVID, when we were on lockdown, I was like, I'm going to learn handstand walking. And at that point I was 50. And so I'm like, learning to handstand walk when you're 50. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
That is one of the major things I wanted to touch on today, because I think a lot of people assume that, you know, masters athletes, you know, they've come through the ranks. They used to compete as, you know, individuals when they were younger and they just ended up in the masters. But for both of you guys, I think you both came to CrossFit like fairly late on.
Yeah.
You know, as did I, really, in terms of, you know, where it is now. And none of us started until we were like in our 30s and 40s. And it just goes to show, you know, it's such a cliche, it's never too late, but it really is never too late. You know, Absolutely. Most of us learn how to do all this stuff in our late 30s and 40s. I certainly did not grow up snatching, clean and jerking, any kind of gymnastics, really. I was, you know, a complete meathead. So yeah, all of this skill acquisitions happened at a late age. Have you found has that been a very organic thing, or has age been any kind of frustration for you in learning new skills? I mean, this goes to both of you. Has there been restrictions in terms of like mobility or, you know, injury, definitely kind of thing?
Restrictions. I mean, I think one of the things that was really, I started when I was like coming up on my 40th birthday. So it was like, you know, got to do something. I'd always been a runner and done like a little bit of stuff here and there, like in and out of the gym doing, you know, just bodybuilding stuff, but nothing serious. But the thing that I really loved about CrossFit is exactly what Jake was talking about, where it's just kind of like there was a new skill to learn every time you walked into the gym. So, I mean, back in those days, it felt like more like going to a playground. You know, it's like, oh, you can play on the bars and learn how to do, you know, muscle ups and max height box jumps and run as fast as you can, things like that.
But I even remember handstand push-ups when I started. I had to have 3 ab mats on just to do one, like to train.
Yeah.
It's always been a little bit of my weaknesses, but I mean, I just started there. And so when people are asking me now, I'm like, you're only going to get older. You might as well like learn some new things if you're getting older. I mean, how often do we get to learn a completely new skill like in our 40s and 50s? Like,
Yes.
that you're
Yeah.
not building upon.
And I think that is a real gift of the sport. And also, you know, it gives people, sounds corny to say, but it gives people hope. You know, it's like,
Sure.
you know, I think a lot of people think, oh, as I get older, I'm going to have to, you know, slow down and not do this and not do that. And then here are you guys like doing it all and kind of, you know, paving the way and I think the most impressive thing about CrossFit is actually the masters. Like, of course, it's impressive to see a 22-year-old do amazing things, but it's even more impressive to see a 50-something do amazing things.
Yeah, it might not look pretty, but it is impressive.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, you say about looking pretty, but I will say for you two guys, you know, although the aesthetic thing isn't the purpose of CrossFit, both of your physiques changed massively when you started doing CrossFit, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, it's one of those things with just like the idea of CrossFit is, I think, like, you either have people who go at it full force and learn the new skills and, you know, change their diets and kind of like embrace the entire thing. And you do basically change the composition of your body. I mean, I was always like a little round, a little, you know, thin armed,
Pear shaped, I think they call it.
But, you know, I mean, it's like I started doing it and you see the results at the beginning, and then, you know, there are definitely periods of time that I go through where it's just aesthetics for me. It's like, I just want to continue to look good. And then there are times when it's like, I enjoy the whole competing aspect of it too. So it goes back and forth, but yeah, it totally changed. It's funny because I just saw pictures of Jake recently when he was like running and doing triathlons and stuff. And I had a home gym, and that's when he started doing CrossFit. As I was training people out of my gym, and we would just like put together these kind of crazy workouts. But I mean, he was like a beanpole, and now he's huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's been, you know, that has been really interesting. Yeah, that is super interesting to me though, because, you know, by definition and by nature, it's not a mass gain sport. It's not a sport designed to put on a lot of muscle mass, but just by the sheer volume and the sheer, you know, the work capacity that you've developed has given you that growth of muscle.
I would also, just to interrupt for a second, I mean, not to like blow smoke up your butt or whatever, but I think a lot of that has to do with how you initially programmed for us when you were first opening Pharos, and kind of like following more like a CrossFit or a functional fitness model that had more to do with kind of like lifting and doing the building part. That build program that you run at Pharos, it's like it was kind of this perfect mix so that, you know, people like Jake or like me, or who wanted to build a little bit of mass, could do that and still get the, like, you know, the speed and the AMRAP and the EMOMs of CrossFit going too. So that's credit to how you program team.
Well, thank you for that. I'm not sure if that's completely true, but
I do remember at that time when you first, like, the shed workouts, and it was a time when I was deciding like I wanted to take it a little more serious, and I needed to get heavier weights and do more.
Yes.
And I remember completely going off CrossFit training and just doing build.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think back then, and I think it's changed now, because I think a lot of CrossFit programmers are a lot smarter than they were back in 2016, 2017. But yeah, there was definitely a lack of like, this is how you actually build strength. This is how you actually build muscle that's functional muscle that can actually help you in the sport. And I think maybe I was just, you know, I just cottoned onto that a little bit earlier than some. But I think now these days, you know, we all follow, you know, various different programs and so forth. And from what I can see, most are now much more, you know, into that, like the accessory work, the need to pay attention to the
lift every day.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just max out every day and then do a Metcon and expect to, you know, get that much stronger. I mean, if you look at like, you know, CrossFit.com back in 2011, you know, you weren't really going to get those kind of gains from following something like that.
Have like one day that was lifting, one day that was a Metcon, and then one day that was a rant against the U.S. government and everything. So that was always fun.
Right. Whereas now it's like, you know, you're pretty much squatting every week, you're pressing every week, you're really paying attention to those kind of strength gains. And with those strength gains, you know, usually have some.
Though, if it, like you said, whether CrossFit is changing, I mean, the training module, or I've noticed as I've gotten older that my needs for it have changed, because I remember in my 40s, like I had to get the big lifts and I had to get big numbers for those in order to be competitive. In your 50s, it started to drop, and I'm seeing it. I mean, even this year, I was very conscious, like, I'm just going to start running. Like, I started running like 4 days a week again, because being able to be more agile and do more of the, like in the open style workouts that they've changed it to now, are all just like body weight and just moving your body. And so I don't know whether it's CrossFit is evolving, or whether the training is evolving, or just as you get older, like in my group, my competitive groups, like you get, that strength, and then you got to start like getting speed, and it becomes less important for the max lifts.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a conscious thing by them, of like, they don't expect, people in their 50s and 60s to do those major lifts anymore. But, outside of the competitive thing of the sport, the fact that you can still do those big lifts and you can still, perform in that way, I think for your own development and your own longevity, I think that's crucial. The competitive side of it, and whatever the games is going to do, is going to be one thing. And then what you do for yourself and what you need to stay strong and stay agile and stay functional, that'll be your own kind of journey. So
I do tell people, though, you need to reset your maxes like every 5 years, so you're not competing against your 20-year-old self and pulling a Jeff Scarborough and competing against, when you were 22. Like
exactly, yeah.
Go in 5-year blocks and say, I just got my PR'd my thing again, and not your 30-year-old PR.
Yeah. Right. And it is that thing of, I've still got a sub 3 Fran time. It's like, well, have you? Probably not. So you think, your success at this point, Jake, and Robert as well, because you're both training in the gym together a lot. Do you think it's just the years and the volume and the work capacity you've been able to build to get to this point, or have you been doing anything differently in the last kind of couple of years?
Attrition at this point, outlive, outlast.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's
by the wayside. I think it was last year that a couple of I make light of it, but a couple of the 50-year-old athletes at the games, one of them that we actually know and have competed with before, like picked up his jump rope and had a stroke. So yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. Well,
I always say, like, if I had started this sport in my 20s, like I would have killed myself. Like I was so
right.
broken. Yeah.
I would so competitive, and I'd be like going just balls out all the time. And starting when you're a little bit older, you are smarter about it, I hope.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, I think I've got my Bolt t-shirt on, by the way. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And we're seeing that now, of course, with these teens and young people in their young 20s having to take time out because they're already burnt out by such a young age.
I think that's a function of how much the sport has changed, though, too. I mean, when we were back in 2016, like the first Open, or not the first Open that he did, and the first Open that you and I were kind of like doing workouts together. I mean, 135 was still a weight that would show up in a workout. And now, I mean, these guys who are competing at Carson this weekend, I mean, they're like starting ladders at like 245. You know? I mean, just a totally different.
But then they've also got to be able to run a 6-minute mile, and they've got to, swim.
Yeah, it's such a huge ask of the human body that it can't last long. It's just too much. It's funny. I did a workout today, and I took the inspiration from that semifinal workout, which is the 10 clean and jerks and the 800 meter run for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this at 115. I did 10 clean and jerks at 115. I did a 400 meter run and 800 meter C2 bike for 5 rounds. And it was a great little workout. Yeah. And it was great because it was like, I wasn't having to I wasn't battering my collarbones with, 205 or whatever I was meant to do it at. But it was just like a nice, consistent, like, this feels good. I was moving. It felt fun.
But I think that's the beauty of it, is you can find what the intention is of any given piece of programming and kind of duplicate it for yourself where you're at, and then completely change it, add 7 exactly.
But I think, I honestly think that is a big part of it. And what we need to do to keep CrossFit alive and to keep it, to keep it going in the way that we know it, is to have just that fun functional thing and not worry about huge numbers all the time, because once people get huge numbers in their head, like why can't I clean and jerk 315 and stuff like that, it just becomes this unattainable thing that almost just irritates you, and you end up getting hurt, you end up getting injured.
It has to get back to this, when I got like my L1 certificate in like 2014, 2015, the whole point was like infinitely scalable, So
Yes.
the point was, when I was back at CrossFit Hollywood at the very beginning, I worked out with these two brothers and then their 70-year-old mom and 72-year-old dad, and it was, we all did the same workout, scaled to wherever you were in the process. But that is something that I think has really been lost instead of inviting people in a sense, that heavier weight stuff, I think, just like pushes people away.
It pushes people away. It's too intimidating. It's too like, well, I'm never going to be able to do that, so why would I even try, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So that's something.
Grapple with it, even though now, like we do follow programming, and they scale the weight for age groups, and as you get older, and I've always prided myself at doing the RX weight or whatever it is, and it's hard to let go of that ego and be like Robert said, the intention of this workout is to move it. And even though I could do 205 and 225, is that the intention, like to struggle through it, or do I want to find the intention to like cycle it?
That's something that happens with we've been talking about this with the
ego.
Yeah, for sure. But that's something we've been talking about with the open workouts and the quarterfinal workouts. We're into a new age group for the first time. The weights come down dramatically, and it does really change the intention of the workouts. Everything is a little more, like Jake was saying, he's running and doing a lot more kind of cardio stuff right now. Everything does become, at those lower weights, a little bit more of like, how fast can you move, and not, it was nice for the semifinals. They kept the high level gymnastics in the programming for us, which is great, because there has to be some place for you to set yourself apart.
For sure.
If all you're doing is moving a 35-pound dumbbell, there isn't a whole lot of room to set yourself apart unless you're, short and squat and can move quickly.
Right.
So it's when that's the only gripe that I have with it, is when they start to take away more of the high skill level stuff as you get older, because we can still do it. It's just it's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, if you've taken the time to develop that skill and work on that skill, you want to be able to use it, right? You want to be able to show it off and say, look, I became good at this. This is something. This is a showcase of my dedication to learning this skill. And if it's just dumbbell snatches and burpees, then arguably anybody can kind of throw themselves into it. So you both came into it late. I wanted to touch on kind of inspiration and motivation. I know, Jake, you were competitive in triathlons and swimming before that, and CrossFit gave you a new kind of outlet athletically. What's continued to be the motivation and the inspiration? Is it just like I want to stay fit and healthy for as long as I can, or is there a driving motivation behind it all?
I think it's more the competitive aspect for me. Like I've always been. I will, find the fastest route to get to the gym in the morning and make it a sport. So
yeah, try being his business partner. It's like, who's running the restaurant better?
Right.
Having a competitive like outlet like that, where it's just pure. And then in CrossFit, it breaks down, you can every day you can compete in class with everyone on the leaderboard, or micro competitions, and then building towards a bigger competition, and then there's always bigger competition. So for me, it was that competitive outlet for me, where it's just pure competition. It is all about like just competing and winning, as opposed to in life you have to tame that down, and you can't be ultra aggressive when you're going through the grocery store, and you have to keep everything in the norms. But when you're in the gym, it's like, this is what we're here for. We're here to get better and to push ourselves. So for me, it's that kind of drive for me that I like and enjoy.
Yeah. What about you, Robert?
I think at this point, I like the competitive aspect of it. Like, I went into the Open this year kind of thinking like, what do I care really? It's like, I have no danger of making I'm in no danger of making the games. but qualified during quarterfinals, which I thought was cool. And then, I mean, despite like being traveling during that semifinal weekend, it was just kind of like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to see this through to the end. And I think
you qualified for semifinals too.
Yeah, qualified for semifinals, and then that's doing the semifinals. It's just like, yeah, there's a little bit of ego in it, in like, where do I rack up, or where do I stack up compared to the other dudes in my division. There's definitely a little bit of competition in myself, but I'm not a super competitive person. So for me, it's always been a little bit more about like the community, and also that time in the gym is like the only time in the day that I'm not doing 40 other things,
Right.
or at least part of it,
Yeah.
And that, it definitely has become like more of a kind of sanity thing.
I think you're right. And I think for me, when you talk about the leaderboard and stuff like that, the leaderboard for me was just always a way for me to gauge, like, I just want to stay like in the ballpark and stay close.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was never like, I have to be top, I have to win this. But I remember being in the UK, and at the time we were all doing comp train. And I remember seeing your guys' scores on comp train, and I was in the UK, and it's just that, like, I just want to know, like, you just want a ballpark kind of thing. Like, is this sub 15 minutes or is this 20 minutes? Is this, it just holds you accountable. Because it's too easy when you're on your own to think to yourself, well, this is good enough, or, I'm working hard enough. And then when you see, one of your peers, it's like, oh no, they did it like this and they did it in this time. So that gives me something to shoot for. And it was never like, I want to beat Jake or I want to beat Robert. It was just like, I want to know what to shoot for. I want to know, where I can
be in the mix.
And,
yeah. And I think
I used to like to compete with Jake when I had skills that he didn't, and there were places where I could. And I mean, now he's got like such a well-rounded skill base that I don't really have that, and I'm not the athlete that he is. I mean, I never have been. But I still enjoy like being able to. I still enjoy being able to see what part of the workout I can kind of keep up with him on, and there was like probably 3 or 4 years ago where I had to just like let go of any ego that I did have around it, and it's just kind of like, now I do it, like I said, for the community and for the chance to like get out of my own head for a little bit in the day, so
and I think. Especially you guys are mainly training out of Redondo now. There's such a fun gym for that. Like, it's just a real good community feel. There's a lot of like good athletes there and good people that you can train with, but I don't feel like there's a lot of ego there. It's mainly just kind of fun and jokey, and everyone's kind of pushing each other, but no one's aiming to be better than everyone else kind of deal.
The quarterfinals was a great example of that. I mean, there were a couple of different times that Jake and I had the opportunity to do workouts alongside Bethany Flores, and here's like a games athlete who excels in everything that she does, but the amount of support coming from her was just as strong as the amount of support coming from us towards her. I mean, and that's one of the things that I think is just really, really great about that. We did this whole thing. I did like quarterfinal workout number 2 next to her, and she coined the phrase emotional support masters athlete. So when I saw her after finishing semifinals, she was asking how it went, and I was like, well, I could have used my emotional support games athlete by my side, but I recognized that you had other things going on. So but that is something that is really unique to Pharos Redondo, if we want to put this in the ad, but it is.
Yeah, no, it is. No, I genuinely do. I genuinely see that and feel that when I'm there. It's so good for that. And Redondo is, I always say to everybody, like, CrossFit, the CrossFit that we have Redondo Beach, Pharos Redondo Beach, is your fault. Like, it's purely.
That's a very loaded comment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna excuse myself for just one
second.
You
do it. Yeah, go for it. No worries. Yeah, whether it succeeds ultimately or it fails, it'll be your fault either way. So thank you for that. Robert's fault. Jake,
we can blame everything on him.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to touch on your nutrition and your supplementation. Is it something, because I know like you've gained a lot of mass, a lot of muscle, and it's easy for you to gain more.
You're treading.
I know. I'm being careful what I say here. But I know, what do you sit at? 235?
Yeah, 230.
230, 235. And
And
do you
that's what
have
we
to
were
be,
talking about before when I would just train triathlon. I mean, I was always been a larger guy, being 6'2", but I could never, I'd be around 205, 210. And so when I started CrossFit, and especially just the squatting, regular squatting and the weightlifting, like, it just shot up. And I mean, as you know, like I've tried, even when we do like strict, like carbo and watching my macros, I can maybe get to like 225, 228, but it's never like, I mean, it's just what I'm carrying right
yeah, I think to get under that, you would have to effectively malnourish yourself to get under that. And at that point, you know, your numbers are going to go down. It's not going to be worth it.
now. I mean, and even now, like I'm doing steady state cardio, 30 minutes or more, 4 days a week, like
Right.
running and stuff. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm around 230, but it's not. But in terms of nutrition, like I've never been one to take supplements or even protein bars. I've never really liked the flavor. So I'm always just kind of a more pure food person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm not a big snacker or anything like
Eats
that.
the same thing every single day, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't take any supplements or any type of, I mean, people, I've been asked if I take steroids, but I've never taken steroids or any type of prescription or any type of drugs like along those lines. So it's just like pure, like food driven, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, testament to real food, a testament to the real food you can get at Bolt, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because when you compete, Jake, I mean, usually you're kind of the biggest guy in the field, right? There's not too many athletes that are 230 pounds, especially, you know, masters athletes at 230 pounds.
I mean, that's what I've noticed is, I mean, I think as we get older, it's just harder to hold on to muscle mass. And so
Yes.
that's what I have noticed, like guys who I started with 10 years ago, 8 years ago, like either they've been injured or dropped out, or they're just not as big and they can't do the weights anymore.
Right. So what's amazing to me, because it's kind of counterintuitive, is like you've gotten heavier, but you've also gotten better at gymnastics. And like, I remember when you couldn't do bar muscle ups very well, and you didn't have great chest to bar muscle ups and stuff like that.
Were you at Wadapalooza that year?
Yeah, but now, like, it's not like you lost a ton of weight to be able to do it. Your body just adapted at 230 pounds to be able to do it, just through sheer, you know, bloody mindedness and I mean, technique, of course. And
I should get a handicap, don't you think? Bonus points.
Well, I mean,
Plus,
but it's also like, and we've always said this: the fact that you're so good endurance wise, your aerobic capacity is so good. You know, you're a 230 pound guy that can move. You know, you're better at running than me, and you know that's always been an incredible thing to me. And I guess, you know, partly that's genetics, partly that's your triathlete background. You've always been into those sports. You took some time to develop that, and that's kind of stayed with you in your CrossFit career. And what's been great as well is like that hasn't gone away as you've gotten stronger. You've managed to, you know, keep that mix. You've managed to be good across the soundboard. You've kept your endurance. You've developed your strength. You've improved your gymnastics. And again, I think that's testament to what this sport can do if you do it right. And I know you've had little niggles with injuries here and there, but there's never been anything that's put you out for a long time. There's never been any kind of surgery or anything like that. And again, I think that's
despite the advice of his physician.
Right. Exactly. But it is kind of incredible. And again, people love to bash CrossFit, but you know, I take a look at you guys and I'm like, here's two guys that have done it for years. They're in the best shape of their lives. They're phenomenal athletes. They've never had an injury to speak of, and you know, they're still going strong. So I think, again, if you want to hold out shining examples of what the sport can do, you know, hold up masters athletes that have been doing it for a long time and are still going strong, and still, you know, there's no evidence
on it. I think it is all about like not jumping in and, you know, going full steam ahead. It's incremental. I mean, we just talked about, it took me, you know, 7, 8 years to get to the games and get to this level. And it's just been incremental, like every year. I started with 3 pads on handstand push-ups, and then got rid of one eventually, and now I can, and it's like just gradually building upon all of these skills over time, and as opposed to like throwing yourself in. And I mean, people have always advised that you should only do train muscle ups like once a week and things like that. I don't know. And so I do try to hit on everything like once a week, but I don't try to overdo it. It's kind of knowing your body. I don't really schedule a rest day, but if I'm feeling like tired, or if we get too busy with everything that's going on, then it just kind of organically happens. And it does happen like once a week, just organically. And so
I have found that that's like the biggest thing for myself personally in training is it's like I need more days off between like I'll go in, it was like with traveling and just being really busy and a bunch of stressful things going on with work right now. It's like I went in Monday and all I did was the lifting part, and I was just kind of like, okay, like, it's a 3-piece programming, but it's like, that's what I have today. It's like I moved my head a little bit, got out of my own head moved my body a little bit, got out of my own head for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, it's like when I feel good, I'll go hard. And when, I'm not feeling great, then I pull back. And I think that is a little bit of
smart.
Releasing the ego as you get older.
And people will say, we have this running joke about cherry picking. People like cherry picking workouts, but it isn't. It really is like listening to your body and being like, I'm not going to do that today. Like, it's not going to help me. And the thing is, and I think this is the mistake a lot of people make, is they just bash their body day in, day out, thinking it's going to make them better. When, Robert, what you just said is absolutely right. Like, you better to take a rest day and then come into the next day with more intensity and perform that workout, really well, than doing two average workouts back to back.
Exactly.
That were just trash workouts. Basically, you were just kind of like, doing it for the sake of doing it.
You look at these like high level athletes like Bethany or Josh Alshama, who we were training with for a while, and it's like they're not going 100% every word. They're not going 80. I don't think I saw Bethany sweat until the Open came around this year. I mean, it's like the people I think who are going at it, like they are smart in their training, and
they are, but they also, I mean, that's just the difference between like someone at that level is they have to, I mean, you have to start thinking, what are my competitors doing? What am I doing? And you get caught up in the whole thing. Yeah. So, I mean, both of those people you cited are a little bit older. And so you gain some knowledge, hopefully, but that's people who are just starting in the sport or any of that, you get caught up. And again, it's your ego. And hopefully as a master's athlete, you start to know yourself. And
yeah, super smart. Yeah. I think, the exuberance of youth makes you just go all in. And then, as we're seeing, that can lead to problems fairly early on if you're not careful. Whereas sometimes,
physically and mentally, we're seeing all these.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God, I have to do this. I have to do this, and I have to. Otherwise, I'm not going to get there. But you.
And sometimes, it's a thing where we have these huge hurdles, these huge obstacles, like Bethany's had. But learning to cope with those hurdles and those obstacles actually makes you a much better athlete with more of a chance of longevity, because you learn how to treat your body with more respect. And you learn your way around things as opposed to just like trying to nail it, bang on the head every time.
And for your average CrossFitter too, I mean, I think so much of it is about coaching. When I first started, CrossFit was still relatively new when I started. It was 15 years ago now. And there were, there were a lot of guys who got thrown into a 3-day CrossFit course. And now I'm a CrossFit coach. And I messed my back up multiple times because I didn't know better than to try and pull 200 pounds off the floor when I had never lifted in my life. You know what I mean? I've never lifted that way in my life. So I think for the general CrossFitter too, there's a lot of just like, okay, there's like, listen to your coach and make sure.
Well, also, there just were a lot of bad coaches back in the day because they just didn't,
for sure.
They just didn't have the background really in sports science or in personal training or with clients or whatever it was. It was just a weekend course, literally. And then they were like, I'm a CrossFit coach now, come train with me. And then it was like, oh shit, bad things happen.
Exactly.
But I think, hopefully a lot of people have learned a lot of lessons since then. And I think, that's the strange thing. It's like, although objectively it's a less popular sport now than it was in 2012, there's way better coaches and there's way more information and there's way better ways of doing it now. So we have to find a way to, get back to the, you know, the success and the popularity of 2012 with 2012 with the knowledge that we have now, and will produce, you know, not just much better athletes, because, you know, athletes are one thing, but much healthier human beings generally that are strong, injury-free, healthy, all that stuff. And that's the whole point.
Yeah, longevity. And I mean, anything that you start doing, I mean, there's so many studies out now about, you know, just resistance training and weight training as you get older as like being like one of the most important things about keeping yourself young and keeping your body in good shape as you get older. Is, I think, any sport that you attack, like, yeah, like younger kids should be figuring out like where is their longevity. You know, with Anna, my niece, is a great example of this, you know, where she's somebody who went just hard at it for like 2 years and was just overtraining and miserable, and her body was a disaster. And I think that there was a point where she kind of woke up to the fact that it's like working out, being physical, being athletic is something that I really enjoy in my life. How am I going to continue to do this as I age? And for her, that was, you know, it's like, okay, like, you know, maybe scale back a little bit.
Totally. Well, it's very easy for fitness to go from a healthy addiction to an unhealthy addiction.
For sure.
Because, you know, I would argue that us three are all addicted to fitness in some way, but I would say it's a healthy addiction. It keeps us, you know, it keeps us healthy, it keeps us strong, it keeps us motivated.
Well, it's just,
you know, it's
also between, I mean, I don't envy any of the people who are doing this to make a living at it. Like,
no, yeah.
And that's what, I mean, doing it as a master's athlete and having the constraints that we have, like our businesses and our families. And I mean, doing it as our level, like that's what I really enjoy about it. Cause I mean, some days I get an hour and I'm like, I got to make this work with this hour. Some days there's a luxury, I get 2 hours and I'm like, okay, now I can spend some more time doing some skill stuff and this. But I mean, you just kind of fit it into your life. And the ones who, all they have is during their whole day is they got to train and they feel that. I mean, it's like not a good recipe for success.
Yeah, it's not. And I've had multiple athletes on the podcast. We've had this conversation. It's so hard to make a career out of it. It's so hard to make any money out of it, you know. And I think a lot of people come to that realization of, oh my God, I've been killing myself for 10 years and this is never going to pay out for me. There's never going to be a payday here. What am I doing?
I mean, making money off the sport, I think that's where they go wrong.
That's where they go wrong. Yeah.
But, I mean, as we've said, I mean, they need to find a place to make CrossFit, like as all the benefits that we've talked about right today. And this, I think, are the greatest things about it. And as you're getting older and fitting it into your life and being scalable and doing what you can do, I mean, all of those things are the key components of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on that again. My next question to you guys is, because you are both super busy, you have multiple businesses now, you're both fathers. How do you fit this all in? Are you pretty much just like taking each day as it comes and being like, I get it in when I get it in? Or are you more structured than that?
I think we both kind of do this. It's like there's a space in the day that is like, okay, here's my window to go to the gym. And
there's a general framework I think we kind of try and start with, and then there have to be like some concessions, and flexibility I think is one of the key components as we get older doing this. But definitely prioritizing fitness. It's always been a huge priority of mine, even like when I'm thinking back to college and like my first job, I worked in a law firm and I was working, 12, 14 hours a day, and I would still find time to go to the gym or go for a run or do something. And so it's just always creating some sort of space in your day, whatever that might be, for that break or that physical fitness thing for me. And so now it's just kind of evolved, like when you add more components to it, as long as it's a priority somewhere, you can fit it in. And like I said, some days it's a rest day and you just have to take it and go with it and let it go and just go the next day. But I think when you start creating a habit of like letting it go and those kind of things, like unless you prioritize it and say, and Robert and I think that's one of the things he recognizes in me. It's a little bit more of, I don't know what, an obsession or a priority.
Not an obsession, but I mean, and this is going to sound like I'm joking. I'm not. It's like, we work together so much and in so many different aspects of the different businesses that we run. It's like, I know that for him, like this is what he needs. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
it's important that he does this because it affects
Yes.
the rest of the day. And
Totally.
I mean, for me personally, it used to be the first thing that I let go. If I got like busy or stressed, I would just like, I didn't make time for it. And I think probably like 7 or 8 years ago, I got to a point where I was kind of like, I absolutely positively have to make time for this.
Right.
But,
Yeah. Well, I think that's key for all, like, as we, you know, as we are parents and we do get busy with life and jobs and stuff, we do have to carve out time for ourselves. And it's super important because it's easy to give yourself away all the time. You know, give yourself to your work and give yourself to your kids and like give yourself to your spouse or whatever. And then suddenly you're just miserable because you don't have anything for yourself. So it's not, you know, it's not selfish. It's not, you know, you're not damaging anybody by carving out time for yourself and being like, I have to do this for myself. Otherwise I am going to go crazy. And I certainly feel that, like, I have to have that moment to myself in the day. And I know, I mean, this is why, and I think, Robert, you're the same, and Jake, I don't know what time you go to bed, but I go to bed super early. Like, I'm usually always in bed by 9, just because I want that time in the morning between like 5 and 7 where I just can't.
You have young kids, and I will say that was a habit. I mean, I go to bed early now for work, but when Grace was little, then I mean, I would go to bed early so that I could get up at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go for a run, because it was, you know, as you know, it's that like 1 hour in the day where you're not trying to keep another human being alive, you know?
Right.
So
right.
that's kind of,
But it's also important, like, I know my daughter's 10 now, and she has seen me do this my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's she is into sports and fitness.
Yes.
I don't even think it's really connected with her, but I think as she gets older, she'll start to see like, oh, like my dad would always do that. And she knows it's important to me. And just for her to know, to realize that this is an outlet that you can use as well for your mental.
Totally. And I guarantee subconsciously it's in there. Like, she thinks what you do is normal.
Right.
Like, I mean, and both my kids grew up in the gym. Like, Wyatt grew up in the gym in Echo Park. We always took him to the gym from day one. Levi's been the same up here. They've seen people being physical. They've seen physical fitness most days. So they think that's normal. They don't realize that 95% of the population don't do that at all. You know, so
and
hopefully,
it's a positive, especially for women, seeing strong women. I mean,
totally.
my daughter is seeing, she totally thinks this is totally normal to have thighs like, I mean, quads like Bethany or Danny Spiegel. It's totally acceptable. And I think that's so powerful. My sister,
so powerful, so healthy.
With me, and she's always been she swam. She's always been super self-conscious of her back muscles and all of these things. And it created a huge thing for her, eating disorders and all of that. And we talk about it now with our daughters growing up in this time frame and being around these physically fit women who the body positivity is so much stronger now.
And I think people also, I mean, you know Grace, you know my daughter, and I mean, trying to get her to do anything physical when she was a kid just couldn't, like, she was completely disinterested in it. I was trying to put her in, you know, CrossFit classes, and it was a never ending like frustration for me. And one of the great things is now that she's 20 and she's out on her own, like, she now posts like progress pics. You know, she's found an element of lifting in the gym that she just loves and is totally into it. So I think that's, you know, the other thing, being a parent. And as long as like kids get the exposure to it, it doesn't mean that they're going to, you know, love it from square one, but you are planting something in there that that shows them that it's an outlet that's valid and that people really enjoy. So I get a huge kick out of that now. I'm just kind of like, I think you lift up shit when you were a kid, and now here you are. You're like, you know, she's bragging about deadlift PRs and whatnot. So
well, that's also rewarding, you know, as a parent to have that and to see that, because, you know, you hope you're having a good influence on your kids. You hope you're doing the right thing and all that stuff. And then when you get that reflection back to you, it's like, that worked. You know?
That is it. It's like, oh my God.
Because you are, you know, you do it, like I said, you carve out time for yourself. You do it for yourself, but you also do it to, you know, to set a good example. And when they see that example, you know,
I mean, it's like you said, I mean, so many, like, I see all these parents, I'll do anything for my kid. And I'm like, would you lose 20 pounds? Exactly. I mean, that's probably be the best thing you could do, is lose 20 to 40 pounds for your kid, like at some point, especially when you're underage. So I'm like, and people aren't willing to do that. So I'm like,
I know. Yeah. But you're both, honestly, both as parents and as friends, you guys are really inspirational. I'm really grateful that I've had you in my life since 2016. I enjoy every workout that we have together. I enjoy seeing, all your progress. I look forward to another, 20 years of this stuff together. And
for sure.
Congrats on the growth of Bolt. We haven't really talked about Bolt that much, but as everyone knows, it's the best cafe in East Los Angeles, and now the best cafe in Redondo Beach. And
Hermosa, but yes.
Hermosa. And congrats to you both. It's been an amazing journey. It's been amazing to see everything you've achieved, everything you continue to achieve. And wish you guys nothing but love and success. And Jake, I can't wait to see you compete in the CrossFit Games this summer. It's September, right?
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend in Alabama. Who doesn't want to do it?
It's the place to be.
Full Pharos kit. Don't forget.
Exactly.
Full kit. I promise.
Yeah.
Full tracksuit. Full shell suit. It's coming.
All
right, guys.
Very mutual. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course. It's been an absolute pleasure. That is 100 episodes, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Come work out with me, Robert, and Jake at both Pharos Redondo and Pharos Echo Park. Also, come work out with us in Pharos Idlewild, and look out for our new gym opening in Palm Springs. Robert and Jake, you guys are going to come out to Palm Springs. I'm building the facility for you guys. Basically, it's an amazing gym that's going to have.
It's our
retirement facility. It's everything. It's everything we ever wanted in a gym in everything we ever wanted in a gym in one place. So that's going to be super fun. Please like and share this video if you can, guys. If you're listening on YouTube, like and share. If you're listening on Spotify, whatever it is, like it, share it, tell your friends to tell their friends, and come see us soon. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and take care.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, boys. Take care.
See ya.